fixtures, it's not the components of the building itself behind it. That's the key component here. So there is corrosion, as you've seen. We discussed that. In fact, I showed pictures at the 25th of February.
Yep.
There were bolts, there were pieces, there were the brackets which are actually starting to get corroded because the water coming in. The impact of that corrosion is only on the fixings holding the cladding in place. That's the key difference here.
We might differ on that because there's photos too in the Mott MacDonald report of a lot of water in the plant room. A lot. Pretty clear. And there's spalling on the... Look, I won't go on. But do you have answers... we're going to have to take some time on this, Madam Chair, because I don't want us to be in a situation where there was a vote of 8-6 with a lot of absences in 2011. This is a big issue and we're just going to have to plough through it.
Yes,
so I've tabled a number of questions.
So Councillor Darby, I mean, we will, the presentation, we'll receive the presentation and then we will go into confidential.
And then we'll come out to debate it?
Go and have lunch and then we'll come back.
Okay, so... my questions that were tabled? Okay,
so there was a series of questions, including the last ones that just came through last night. So the request for information, I have provided the Mott MacDonald reports, which was the due diligence reports. The other pieces of information, no, I haven't got the other reports available. There was some notes I just flicked back through to you. The last pieces were, the questions that came through last night were around the notion of the weather tightness, the building consent. Look, building consent is a relatively simple process, because this is only on the cladding of the building. It is not affecting the structure. It's not affecting the nature of the building. The building consent process is seen to be quite a simple one, and we should have that completed by June on a staged basis, rolling it through as the various stages of the remediation work proceed.
Okay, on that question, you've answered that, and I appreciate that. And so the reclad team is involved with that, because there is corrosion of the fittings, which triggers the code.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So our reclad team is involved with the building consent.
The individuals have been involved, yes.
Okay, thank you. So just on the procurement of services, and that's why we need to discuss the numbers only and excluded. Is this a normal procurement, or is this on a schedule of quantities and looking at the design, etc.?
Yeah, look, that's the piece we'll discuss with the Tenders and Procurement Committee, is what we're doing is the procurement plan will identify quite clearly what the intended approach is, as well as who the recommended suppliers will be to deliver on that procurement plan. So that's the piece that will be going to the Tenders and Procurement Committee on the 24th of April.
26.
Okay.
So it's being worked through and finalised as we speak, the actual procurement methodology.
I can't go into the detail of the options 1, 2, 3, 4 that are in the report. They are the proposed solutions, but I can't see any costs and benefits. This was one of my questions finished with you. I can't see any identification of costs, benefits for each option. It's just some narrative, and I would be none the wiser, and particularly the Mott MacDonald report, number 1, they recommended option 1, which is not the preferred option. Why is the Mott MacDonald recommended option not preferred and option 3 preferred?
Keeping the comments quite general because of the nature of this meeting. Fundamentally, things have progressed since then. There's been further investigative work undertaken. There's been more invasive investigations. We've actually looked more at the fittings behind. So the original Mott MacDonald report was in 2012. Things have progressed quite substantially since then. Their report was our input into the full peer review GHD one, which built that report plus the second Mott MacDonald report plus other investigations since. And that was the one that brought a conclusive peer review back, which is what we've actually based those 4 options on in the selection process.
And that's what we did.
Okay, we might have to go into that in the public excluded a bit more. Just on the sale and purchase agreement, there's nothing in these reports about the sale and purchase agreement. I understand due to the whole weather tightness issues across the country, a particular clause came into sale and purchase contracts requiring a vendor to disclose, didn't they? And any weather tightness issues or structural issues that might lead to weather tightness issues. Are you aware of that clause? Was that clause in the sale and purchase contract? It's particularly the clause that draws a focus on that building code, external moisture part of the code. I think it's E2AS1.
Yeah, but again, without going into the legal interpretations, within the sale and purchase agreement, there was the clause which refers to that no information had been withheld, which would actually stop this building receiving code of compliance, public warrant of fitness at the next issuance.
So just on that, we've heard, and I asked Mr McCormick quite deliberately some questions about durability,
Yes.
which was appropriate for the earlier item, but it was appropriate for here too. And he actually, I think it was Sally, and I forget the second name, said that durability does require the performance of the building with usual maintenance to be ongoing, to meet those standards for 50 years. Now, it was a 21-year-old building when we discovered it, and Mott MacDonald's first report, let alone their second report, clearly identified some major problems that are not consistent with the code. Why was it not picked up at that time that we were so far off code?
Yeah, the
Madam
response
Chair,
that was
can I
given.
can I just ask a question? I am really interested in what Councillor Darby's asking, and I'm just asking a little bit of guidance. I'm really keen, if there are any opportunities on behalf of the ratepayers around liability or legal follow-up or ability of us to get some money back on this issue, I do not want us to put this at any risk. I think Councillor Darby's asking some very valid and critical questions, and I don't want to be accused of saying, let's get behind closed doors. On the other hand, it's actually quite foolish of us, if we are looking at liability issues, to quietly have, and I don't know what law, I don't know everybody here, we could quietly have a team of lawyers sitting behind us waiting to go, well, we'll pounce on you because we know exactly what your case is, we'll sort you buggers out and make sure those ratepayers sheet home every bit of money that we can get from them. So, I may be overstating the case, Madam Chair. I guess I'm saying, we need the answers to this, but we kind of just need to not put our ratepayers' money at risk in doing that, and find the right place to have that discussion. Does that make sense?
We can have that discussion in confidential.
So, Chair, I've just got one more couple of questions and then I'll let others, but I take your point, Deputy Mayor, and I make actually no criticism whatsoever of Mott MacDonald. I'm hugely impressed by their reports.
Agree.
But I'll follow up on that later on. But my final question, and Councillor Casey did ask a question that was sort of on the excluded, but it was answered, and there was a $1.1 million reduction on the negotiated price, or the original price was 105.1, and it was brought down to 104 upon receiving the Mott MacDonald report and looking at the quantum that we were being faced. Are you able in the open to be able to tell us what the Davis Langdon QS said in the costs that the council would be steering at that time? I know it's in here on the excluded, but it's not related to procurement of future services. And I guess what I'm asking for there is, what's the difference between that number, if you can tell us that number, and the numbers we are looking at today, when Mott MacDonald said at that time that every sealant to every stone had to be replaced, bare minimum, within 1 year. And then they went on to say, we estimate that nominally 50% of the stone may need to be remediated due to inadequate fixing and degradation of epoxy. So they signalled all stone sealant must be replaced within 1 year. We're well past that. And they also said nominally 50% of that stone was problematic. Now that says to me that's an enormous number, not the number that I saw, which I can't mention from an earlier report. Are you able to tell us how did we get from here to there when we had all this knowledge?
Yeah, look, without going into too much detail, what you heard there was expressed was the sealant, which was actually literally the silicon sealant around the panels to stop water getting into them, and that was referring to the epoxy as well. So that's talking about all of them being replaced. That's purely the sealant on there. That's not referring to the fixings behind. No. It's not referring to the notion of actually take the panel off, look at the brackets, look at the bolts, look at the packings in behind there, and what needs to be replaced there. So it's actually talking about quite two different things there.
Yeah.
The second part talked about nominally 50% of the stone may need to be remediated due to inadequate fixing. We knew that when we did the first due diligence.
Yep. But again, the scale of what that meant, remediation, does it just mean literally checking on how the stone is sitting on the bracket? Does it actually mean putting packings in to make sure it actually has a cavity between it and the wall? What came out subsequent to 2012 was the further investigation, which was what actually condition are those in there. Yep.
Thank you.
The nature has changed over time.
I've got Councillor and I and Councillor Quax, and then we
We do.
really must
Madam
accept the
Chair,
report
I've got a question too.
and
on the,
move
I've got a
on.
question on the
Well,
report.
well, Councillor Wood, you need a break.
Come back
Very
after.
good.
Madam Chair,
It's
I've
probably-
actually, Madam
come and
Chair,
break
I
and
wanted,
come back.
Madam Chair, I just want to give an explanation to that. There's a lot of mirth and laughter around. I actually had to go to the convenience, and I was wanting to do that.
Oh, no.
And that's the reason why I want a comfort stop. So, and we've been here, but I've done that now, so we'll carry on. You know, I think it's outrageous.
Some of us need
That's
something
due
to-
diligence for you.
There'll be a few during the vote as well.
Okay, can I, right, thank you.
Carry on.
That's far too
I'm
much
happy.
information,
But
Councillor
I've got
Quax.
a question anyway.
Yeah,
so
no,
give
that's
me a-
okay. Councillor and I.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've listened to the discussion here today, and I don't think there's anywhere in the world that anybody could buy a building that's 25 years old and not spend money bringing it up to specs. That's point one. Point two, we bought this building, as Bill has pointed out, for just over 100 million, and today is in the 250 to 300 million bracket. We're spending 50 million to bring it up to to where we are today.
Pardon?
The question is, how much would it cost to build that building today from scratch to where it is today? The other question is, how much rent have we taken from elsewhere and converted to investment by putting it into this building? And the question is, if we held it for 25 years, what would be the value of it? And what rent would we be paying then, if any? And how much are we contributing back to the ratepayers at that point in time? It's that long-term view we've got to look at here. And when we do that sometime in the future, we may, if we're still here, we'll find out this was a completely wasted discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Quax.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question, Kevin. When this decision came up in 2011, a lot was made of the savings that we would make in relation to the old Civic building, including annual savings, also work point savings. I don't know if I should discuss this at this point, Madam Chair, whether those, but there were individual work point cost savings per year. The $2.3 million per year relevant to the LTP budget that we would save, also because it was the nature of the 5-star rating, we would have a long-term payback, and maybe those issues have now been nullified by the fact that we've now got to get cladding imported from France, by the sounds of things. But Kevin, are those savings still relevant now as they were when we decided on the purchase of this building back in December 2011? Or have are those savings now been taken up by the fact that we've got some costs that we're facing relevant to fixing this building up?
Yep. Yeah, through the chair, the original business case did talk about the $2.3 million. That was updated to $2.7 million in the early years, an average over 3 years. And then the business case was showing that was actually going to grow even further once you go out to a 20-year period to substantially more. Once we started to release some of those other leases and bring other people back into the CBD area from some of those other locations. So yeah, the savings still stand, and if anything have actually grown. Look, substantial savings in the LED, some savings in the water. The work point savings, yep, that's just literally by having the open plan nature we have now, the much more conducive, collaborative process the staff find, means you fit many more people into a 1,200 metre square footprint. So, yep, those savings have been achieved.
Well, how can that be when we've now added a large cost to this building?
Yep.
That we now, the savings based on the original costs are still relevant.
Yep. I was going to add the last piece of the puzzle. Obviously, if there's additional work required. Now, some of this work was anticipated. We're doing it earlier than expected. That's why we brought some funds back in the February meeting. Yeah, but no. Look, if what we do is discuss this under confidential that there isn't a need for additional budget, that will have an impact. But the magnitude we're talking about will not reduce all of those savings. There will still be savings achieved.